The jaw. Feel your jawline right now. Run your finger from your ear to your chin. Is it sharp and angular, or does it curve and soften before it gets there? That angle isn't aesthetic. It's a record of what your ancestors ate for thousands of years. A wide, square jaw means your masseter muscles, the ones that close your mouth, are massive. Not gym-built massive, genetically massive. Populations that survived on tough, fibrous food developed this jaw over generations. Raw tubers dug from frozen ground. Dried meat with the consistency of leather. Seeds that needed to be cracked, not chewed. Your ancestors didn't have cooking pots for most of human history. They had their jaw or they starved. A narrow, softer jaw doesn't mean weakness. It means something different happened in your bloodline. Cooking emerged earlier. Softer food became available. The jaw stopped needing to be a vice and started becoming a precision instrument. Narrower jaws correlate with more complex language development. A slightly smaller jaw changes the shape of the oral cavity, changes resonance, changes the range of sounds a mouth can produce. One jaw built to crush, one built to communicate. Your bloodline needed whichever one it developed. Both are here because they worked. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The nose. Nobody escapes this one. Every culture on Earth has opinions about noses. Too big, too flat, too wide, too narrow. The beauty industry has spent a century trying to make you uncomfortable with the structure sitting in the middle of your face. Here's what that structure was actually doing. Your nose is a climate control system, and it was engineered specifically for the environment your ancestors survived in. Narrow noses with a higher bridge are most common in cold, dry climates. The longer nasal passage warms and humidifies air before it reaches your lungs. Breathe cold, dry air directly into unprotected lungs and you get inflammation, illness, reduced efficiency. Your ancestors in Northern Europe and Central Asia breathed through a biological furnace. Every breath arrived warm and moistened, infection rates dropped, endurance increased. Wide, flatter noses are most common in warm, humid climates. Here the problem was never warming the air, it was moving enough of it. A wider nasal passage increases airflow volume. More oxygen per breath in dense jungle heat, faster recovery, more efficient cooling. Your nose isn't too big or too flat or too anything. It was calibrated over thousands of generations to make breathing in a specific climate as efficient as possible. The climate changed. The nose didn't need to. The forehead. Place your hand flat across your forehead, high and vertical, or low and sloped toward the brow. This one confused researchers for decades because they kept looking at it as a single feature. It's not. It's the visible result of two completely different evolutionary pressures happening at the same time. The sloped forehead with a pronounced brow ridge is older. When early human skulls are mapped chronologically, the steep brow ridge appears first, then gradually flattens over hundreds of thousands of years. That ridge wasn't decoration, it was structural reinforcement above the most vulnerable organs in the face. A direct hit to an unprotected eye socket in a world before medicine meant blindness. Blindness meant death, usually slowly. The brow ridge absorbed impact, deflected it away from the eye. The people with the most pronounced brow ridges survived physical confrontations with their vision intact. Their children inherited the ridge. The high vertical forehead is different. It shows up as brains got larger, specifically as the frontal lobe expanded. The frontal lobe handles planning, impulse control, social behavior, and long-term decision-making. As human groups got more complex, the individuals who could navigate those groups, who could plan ahead, delay gratification, read social situations accurately, those individuals survived more consistently and reproduced more. The forehead expanded to house the machinery, low forehead, brow protection, high forehead, social intelligence. Both solved real problems. Both are still solving them. The cheekbones. High cheekbones get called beautiful so often that the phrase has become meaningless. Nobody stops to ask why the brain finds them striking in the first place. Here's the actual answer. High cheekbones in cold populations served a direct physical function. The zygomatic arch, the bone that creates cheekbone prominence, sits in front of the masseter muscle and also shields the soft tissue of the midface from wind and cold. Populations from the Arctic, Siberia, Mongolia, and the northern plains show consistently high cheekbone prevalence. That prominence reduces exposed surface area on the face, less skin losing heat to wind, less tissue vulnerable to frostbite, but high cheekbones also emerged in populations far from the cold. And that's where the second function comes in. A prominent cheekbone changes the geometry of the face. It creates shadow. It separates the eye region visually from the lower face. It makes facial expressions easier to read from a distance. Raised cheeks during a genuine smile look different from a forced one. The visual contrast is sharper. In groups large enough that you couldn't know everyone personally, reading a stranger's face accurately from across a clearing was life or death information. Is that person a threat? Are they showing genuine welcome? High cheekbones made those signals louder. Natural selection kept selecting for them, from two completely different directions, until they became one of the most universally recognized features on a human face. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. The chin. Here's the strange one. Every other primate on Earth doesn't have one. Gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos. Look at their lower jaw, it slopes backward below the teeth. The projecting bony chin is uniquely, exclusively human, and for a long time, nobody could agree on why. The mechanical argument says the chin reinforces the jaw against the forces created by speech. As humans started producing complex language, the lower jaw experienced new stress patterns. The chin acts as a buttress, stabilizing the mandible during the rapid, repetitive movements of talking. The social argument is different and harder to dismiss. Chin shape is one of the most variable features on the human face. Strong and square, pointed and narrow, recessed and soft. That variability exists because it became a recognition marker. In large groups where individual identity mattered, where knowing who kept their word, who shared resources, who could be trusted, having a face that was easy to individually identify kept you socially embedded. A prominent, individually shaped chin helped make faces distinct and memorable. The people who were remembered were the people who got included. The people who got included survived. Your chin isn't a random leftover. It's the fossil record of language and trust written in bone. Face width to height ratio. Measure across your cheekbones. Now measure from your upper lip to your brow. Is your face noticeably wider relative to its height or more elongated and narrow? Researchers at the University of St. Andrews found that face width to height ratio correlates with prenatal testosterone exposure. Wider faces, specifically a higher width to height ratio, corresponded to higher testosterone environments in the womb. The same finding that appears in the hand's 2D to 4D digit ratio shows up here, written much larger. Higher prenatal testosterone faces showed statistical correlations with faster reactive aggression, higher risk tolerance, and dominance behavior in social hierarchies. In physical confrontations where speed of aggression mattered, this was useful. In resource competition, this was useful. In situations requiring someone to challenge an existing power structure when staying silent would have killed the group, this was useful. Narrower faces showed different correlations, higher social sensitivity, better performance on tasks requiring reading other people's emotional states accurately. Wide face, fast aggressor, the one who acted when acting was necessary. Narrow face, fast reader, the one who knew when acting was necessary before anyone else. Groups that had both didn't have to choose. They had the full toolkit, facial symmetry and what it's actually measuring. Everyone knows symmetry is considered attractive. Almost nobody knows why the preference is there in the first place. Facial symmetry is not about aesthetics. It's a health assessment tool, and your brain has been running it automatically on every face you've ever seen without telling you. Perfect bilateral symmetry in the face indicates developmental stability, the same genes expressing correctly on both sides, the same growth environment on both sides. High symmetry means the organism made it through development without significant disruption from parasites, illness, nutritional stress, or genetic error during critical growth windows. Early humans had no blood tests, no doctors. Choosing a healthy partner, someone whose immune system was robust, someone whose development had been clean, meant choosing someone with better survival odds for themselves and for their children. Symmetry was the visible signal, but here's the part that gets left out. Humans are extraordinarily good at detecting extremely small deviations from symmetry. Studies show people can detect asymmetry differences smaller than a millimeter when looking at a face. That sensitivity didn't evolve for art appreciation. It evolved because getting that assessment wrong had consequences your ancestors couldn't afford to repeat. You're not finding symmetrical faces attractive. You're running a health scan from 100,000 years ago and calling it attraction because you don't have the translation manual. What your face is actually saying. Every face reading this was built in a specific place for specific conditions by people who had no idea they were engineering anything. The square jaw that ground through 200,000 years of tough food before cooking became reliable. The nose calibrated to the air your ancestors breathed every day of their lives. The brow ridge that kept eyes intact through confrontations that had no rules. The cheekbones that held heat in and broadcast emotion out simultaneously. The chin that language carved into existence and trust kept there. The face width that mapped who your group needed you to be before you were even born. The symmetry your brain reads in half a second and converts into information it took evolution millions of years to learn to collect. You didn't choose any of it. It arrived as the accumulated answer to questions your bloodline faced and survived. The beauty industry has had roughly a century to form opinions about your face. Your face has been field tested for 500,000 years. It passed. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now and don't forget to subscribe.